Do we get him dying when we hit him? Yeah, he's got X's for eyes, so it worked. Welcome to part 3. In our previous video, we got our keyboard controls working. And in this video, we're going to put an attack functionality in, as you may have seen from the intro in the video. We're going to have it so he can attack a training dummy and do damage to it. And that will all be coded in so that it's kind of like a game. Now, in order to get that to happen, though, we're going to have to learn how to use functions and tables. Those are going to be the real focus of this video. Now, I am going to be doing a few things where I've already got part of the code done off screen, and I'm just going to paste it in for things that's really repetitive. And I'll make sure I'm never completely pasting something in that you have no idea what it is. It will be something that you know what it is, but I'm sparing you seeing me type everything in. Okay, so what I want to do here before we go forward, this is not overwhelming at all. This is all, we can look at in one glance and see all of our code and know pretty much what's happening. But as we put more things in here, it's going to become quickly overwhelming. So the first thing I want to do is split this up into modules. In Lua, when you make a new file and link them together, it's called a module. So the first thing I want to do is get this off the screen. So we're going to make a new file, save as, and I'm going to put this in, I had a working copy folder, active video, yeah. So I'm going to call this misc.lua. Misc.lua, you can name this whatever you want, it just has to be .lua. So I'm going to name it misc.lua, and I'm just going to cut this out of the update function and paste it. And I hit C instead of 1 second. Okay, yeah, I'm going to paste it into misc.lua. So it's no longer, our update function is now empty. And we have this in here. But what's happening now is this is just kind of floating by itself, and it does actually need to be in the update function. We can't just put it in a random file. We have to actually get this in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in the syntax for defining a function is like this. So a function is basically I'll just show you, I will explain it, but it's actually easier to show you. We have function, the name of the function, and then this parenthesis thing. And then you have end at the end of the function. So we just need to type in function, and we're going to name it whatever you want. I'm going to name it keyboard controls. And then you do that parenthesis thing. We indent all of this. And there is an end here, but remember, this end is for this if statement. We need an end for the entire function. That's what this line being drawn here represents in Visual Studio. You can kind of track that that's the function. And that's why indentation is helpful, because you can see stuff like that pretty clearly. Okay, so this has created a keyboard controls function. But now we need to actually, it's called calling a function. So we need to put this into love.update again. And we simply do that by typing in keyboard controls. And now this is going to say, okay, what do? I do this, this right here. And so effectively nothing has changed. We're doing this just as if we had pasted that in. Now, it's actually not going to work because I haven't done something that I need to do. I want to show you what the error looks like, though. Oh, I didn't I need to save this down into the new folder that I made. Active video, yeah. Okay. So that's not the error you should be getting. The error you should be getting is this one. Attempt to call global keyboard controls a nil value. So it's basically saying that this function doesn't exist. And the reason it doesn't exist is because we haven't linked this module to our main file. So what we're going to do is we're going to type require quotes misc. Now, this is referring to the file directory, and we don't type .lua. .lua is like the default, and we also don't have to type the directory because they're in the same directory, so we don't need to specify the path at all. We can just do it like this. It's just if it were a JPEG or something, you would need to type .jpeg, but because it's a Lua file, it defaults to Lua, and now it works. So by putting require misc, it started working, and so now it knows what this function is, and this function is simply the exact same thing as if we had put all of that code into our update function. So that's one thing and you know, you might be wondering why I'm bothering to do this. Like, part of it is just like, I don't want all of this code cluttering up the main. This is like our main loop, and we want this to be clean. As you add more things, you'll understand when you start coding why you want this to not be cluttered up with all of the stuff you're coding. You really want this to be readable. And the other thing is, we can now do things like, if I want to shut the keyboard controls off, I can just comment out keyboard controls and run the code, and then there's no keyboard controls. So that's helpful for testing sometimes. If you want to disable something, you can do that. And by the end of this video, I'm actually going to put keyboard controls into another function. So you can have a function that runs a function. So we can have one function that's running all of a certain type of behavior that we want to link together, so to speak. Okay, the next thing I would like to do is get all of this. First thing I'm going to do is clean some stuff up. So we're going to be beginning object-oriented programming in this video. You may have heard that term before. Maybe you kind of know what it means, maybe you don't. But basically, the way we've been doing things right now is we have this global variable, sprite location x, and the way we use it is we just print, and we tell it to print at a global variable, and then we just say, okay, yeah, print this like ASCII that I typed out. None of this stuff is like together in a way that makes a lot of sense. And global variables generally just are not something that we want to use a lot of. There are situations like for width and height. Those are something that we want to be global. And we'll get in more detail about what global means, but it basically means that from any point in the code, we can call this, we can reference this variable, and the code will know what we're talking about. But usually we don't want to use global variables. We want to have things contained into a certain area of the code that they are used in, and not have them polluting the global environment is kind of how people talk about it. But my main concern right now is that we just have all of this haphazard stuff, and I just want to get rid of it all, because we're going to make an object. We're going to make an object for our orc. I decided our character is an orc. I've been working on this sprite for him. So this is the walk animation so far. I've been trying to learn pixel art. I think it looks pretty good. This didn't take me too long, so I have to still do like, I've drawn him in the other directions and stuff, that like left, right, and up or whatever. But I have to animate the walk cycle for that, and then I have to do an attack animation in all the directions. So it might take a bit of work. But the point is, we're going to have an object that we call an orc, and all of the stuff about the orc is going to go into that. And I don't want things like sprite speed, because we're going to have, when this game is done, there's going to be a lot of sprites. Something like saying global sprite location X is just going to be crazy. Like, it just doesn't make sense when you have 50 sprites on the screen to call a global variable sprite location. We're going to have more than one thing. So let's get rid of all of that. We do still need this, but, oh, and I need to get rid of this. This was on. How did that even? Oh, I thought I deleted. I was testing something out before the video started. Just ignore that. Okay. So I want to put this into its own function, which I'm going to call initialize. And we'll put that in here as well for now. So I'm just pasting it right in there. Oops. Okay. So, and then I would like to put all the require stuff in there, but we actually need this to be in love.load, because I can't move require misc into here, because that is in misc. We do need this in love.load. So let's just make sure this works. Oh, it's not going to work. We need to, let me show you something, by the way. If I type initialize here and try to run this, do you think it's going to work? If I ask you that, it probably means it's not going to work, right? It says it doesn't know what initialize is. And the reason for that is because we need to do initialize after require misc, because we tell the code, and that line require misc is when we're telling it, dude, oh, now it's giving me an error because I'm trying to draw a sprite location, which I deleted. So we're going to delete all of that. We should just get a blank screen now. Yeah. So good. We've deleted all of our code, and we have keyboard controls for nothing. So what we want to do now is make the orc. I'm going to do that in a new file, because there's going to be a lot of stuff in here. Yeah, it's going to have a lot of code. Orc.lua is going to have a lot of code. So I'll say this is orc.lua. Now we're going to use a table, and people learn at different speeds. Some people immediately are able to process certain things and like very intuitively, and other people struggle with certain things. Personally, like, I find that there's going to be a lot of syntax overload, I think, here, and you may not understand the intricacies of all of the syntax stuff happening here, but at the same time, I think you probably will understand what's actually happening, even if you don't understand why each like piece of syntax is causing a certain specific thing to happen. And as long as you're understanding the overall concept, I think you're okay. I will try to explain everything as best I can, but I don't want to explain for like, there's only a certain amount of explanation that really helps before you really need to kind of go in and practice coding to get this stuff sometimes. So what we're doing here is creating a table. This is how you make a table. We say orc equals empty table. And so in Lua, a table looks like this. Like in Python, I think it's this. And in Python, it's called a list. In JavaScript, it's called an array. But what it basically is it's like a variable, but we can put multiple things inside of it. So like instead of just like orc equals 200 or whatever, or orc equals like a smiley face string, we can put an infinite number of things inside of the table. And what we're going to do with it is we're going to put things like HP equals 100, and you have to separate, when you do a table like this, you separate everything by with a comma. We'll say like speed equals 3. Well, I'm going to start saying xloc and yloc instead of location. I'll just say xloc equals 500, yloc equals 500. And I'm already forgetting the commas. If you forget the commas, it gives you errors. You really do have to remember those. Okay. And we want sprite as well. Sprite equals this. I'm going to have his axe be separate from him. We're going to be animating the axe separately. So I'm going to have to pull those apart, and rather than having it be all in the same thing. Okay. So this is org table. Now we also need to say, there's just a convention here, like you say return org, and then in the main file, you say, we're going to do it in initialize. We're going to say org equals require org. Now, again, org is referencing this file name without .lua in it. And org here is creating a global variable called org. So this is now a table that exists, that is added in on love.load. And this table is now global. We can see this table from anywhere, and all of the stuff inside the table can be referenced. So let us test that out real quick. And we'll say love.graphics.print. We want to print org.sprite. So the way this works is like when you have stuff in a table, you type the table name, dot, and then the thing. So org.sprite equals this. So by typing org.sprite here, it's equivalent to just typing this. Org.sprite, org.xloc, org.yloc. And we would hope to see the org. Make sure I save everything. We hope to see the org in the middle of the screen with no axe. And we do. All right, cool. So you see how now, rather than having these global variables, we've kind of created this object of org, and we can add things into it. And these all do behave as variables as well. Like we could, for example, say, like I'll actually just show you. If I say org.hp equals org.hp minus 50. So the org has been loaded in initialize. In update, I'm subtracting his HP by 50, and then I'm printing all this stuff. We need to print org.hp, org.xloc, org.yloc minus, say, 15. So now it is minus 30. Now we want to see his HP hovering above his head, and his HP should be 50 because we subtracted it by 50. Oh, no, I forgot how a game loop works, and it's just continually being subtracted by 50 every single frame, right? So why did it start so low, though? So it immediately got really low. Okay, but let's put this in love.load and see if it just is 50. I feel like something is off here. No, it's 50. Okay. Yeah. So there's an example of how the game loop works again, by the way, right? But yeah, so that shows you, though, what this table is doing. Now you can kind of grasp this idea, right? Like we've created an object, and this object is an org, and these are his, like, this is a noun, these are his adjectives, and now we're going to do the verbs. He can have his own functions. So what I want to do here is we're going to take this out of MISC. I know I just created it in MISC, but I want to get it out of here and make it an orc keyboard control. So we're going to say function orc keyboard controls. Now, this is a very Lua specific thing, and let me do it. I'm going to do it the non-Lua way first, just because I think this is how most every other programming language will do it. It'll be function orc dot keyboard controls, and then we're going to pass in an argument. Oh, I haven't explained passing arguments in yet. Let's go in and do that on MISC here. So passing an argument in means that we've actually been passing arguments in. When we do love.graphics.print, these are all arguments that are being passed into the function. The problem is we don't actually see the code for this, so we have no real idea what's going on with that. But to get an idea of how that works, let's pretend, and I don't really want to change the window size through initialize right now, but pretend that we're testing something and we want to keep changing our window size and we want it to be 200. So pretend that we want initialize to be a thing where we can type a number in here and this changes the width and the height of the screen. So we can do that by typing 200 in here. But if we do that now, it's not going to work. We have to actually set the function up to do this. So with 200 typed into initialize, we go in to our actual function here. And rather than leaving this empty, now we don't type 200 because 200, we need this to be whatever it is. Like this needs to be something we can change at will. So this thing, we kind of type in a descriptor. I'm going to type like dimension. Again, you can name it whatever you want. But the point is, whatever you type into here, within this block of code, you're passing that number, you're passing it into the function. That's what you say. You pass the argument into the function. Oops. So now within this block, within this function, this is known as whatever was typed into here. So rather than saying set, rather than using this at all, well, we actually do want to keep that. So what I would actually do here, what we could do it like this. We could just say set mode dimension. And I've commented out keyboard controls, by the way, because we moved it to here and didn't finish it, so it won't work anymore. But if I set it like this, hold on. Okay. We get the small window, so that seems fine. But the problem with doing it this way is that width is still 1000 and height is still 1000. These are kind of like useless at this point. So like we could delete them, but then we no longer have a global variable for our width and height. We just have like another kind of floating number that doesn't persist. So the way I would do this is I would say, I would get rid of these. And you could say, for example, width equals dimension, height equals dimension. And then you could, you could do it like that, for example. But I just want to show you how the code kind of, how the code handles the arguments that you pass in to the function. So now we have this thing where we can scale the size of the screen by typing in a new number here. And we can see that that does work. Okay. So let's go back to 1000. We can just leave this all in. We might as well. I'm going to get rid of it. I don't see us. We're not going to be using that again for. I use that as an example simply because it's very it's code that we've already looked at a lot, so you should be pretty familiar with what's happening, and instead of using it on new code. Now that you understand kind of what passing an argument in is, we're going to say org.keyboardControls, and we're going to pass in an argument which we call self. Now, this is relatively confusing, to be quite honest, but the idea here is that right now we do only have one org, and it is a global variable. So we could just like, by the way, I'm going to get rid of all of these ands. I don't care about the bounds of the screen right now. I just want to keep the code more simple. And we get rid of all of this too. We're just going to get rid of everything. Because these are global variables that don't exist anymore. We want to do everything from the org. So we could do something like if keyboard is down left, org.xlog equals org.xlog minus org.speed. And that would work. That would be fine. But the issue is kind of like we're going to be we want to be able to use keyboard controls on other types of characters. Like I'm going to this game is you're not just going to be controlling an orc all the time. So I want to be able to have keyboard controls as something that eventually is going to be like monster.keyboard controls. And then any type of monster can use the function keyboard controls. And it's not always going to be an orc. Also, like say we do a function in the future for the enemies that we're fighting and there's a bunch of spiders and we have a function like spider.attack, we might have 30 spiders on the screen. So we can't just say spider as a global variable. There's going to be like a bunch of spiders and they're all going to have they're all going to be different things in a table and stuff. And they all have to track their own stuff. So if we just say spider, it's like, it's not going to work. We need to be able to do something like this, where the thing that is doing keyboard controls can refer to itself. And self is always just going to be like the object that is doing the thing. So it checks its own table is what it does. So instead of saying org, we can say self.xlog equals self.xlog minus self.speed. And if you've ever done JavaScript, JavaScript will do this dot and you don't have to define it. I think it just like invisibly sets that as a thing that you can do when you have like classes and stuff. But in Lua, if you do this, it automatically passes in a self. If you do dot, it doesn't. So we're going to go ahead and do the Lua thing though, and do it this way. So we don't need to pass self in, but this colon is what is giving us self. I'm not just like, I just want to make that clear. Okay, self.xlog equals self.xlog plus self.speed. And then this will be the same for y. Up is minus. Okay, and let me check. Do I think this is going to work? I think it will. I think we have all of the pieces in here. No, it won't work. Well, yeah, actually, it will work, I think. It's just we're doing it in a way I wouldn't prefer to do it, but it should work. Then expected near self. Okay, I missed. Oh, yeah, I messed up my Lewis syntax. You have to type then for all of the if statements. some languages don't require you to save that, and it can get confusing when you're switching between them sometimes. Bad number, misc. This is our thing that we butchered with initialize. What's the problem? I think I didn't save it. When you get into multiple modules, sometimes, yeah, okay, it's working. When you have multiple modules, you have to remember to save all of them, or you'll get errors and you don't know why. And if you don't save it, it might be trying to do something that doesn't work anymore. Okay, so this is working. By the way, I do want to mention the way we've been moving stuff around isn't good because diagonal moves faster. Maybe it's kind of hard to tell, but you probably should be able to see that. We're going to need to use vector movement, like in the next video probably. But for now, I'm happy. Like this is, we're mostly going to be focusing on the attack animation. I'm not too worried about the movement right now. Okay, so whether or not you've fully grasped the syntax of this and the self thing, by the way, like we're going to be doing a lot more of that. It should become more clear as we get going. The main thing to understand right now is that we've made an orc object in initialize, and our orc object can now do things like have keyboard controls or attack. Or the next thing I want to do is get rid of this kind of stuff. So we're going to we're going to make new functions here, which I'm going to call orc.update. And I always say dot, like you don't say colon. It's just, you know it's a colon, but you say dot. It's like a Lua convention, I think. I don't know. So we say orc.update, and I want this to do I just want this in here first off. And then I think that's all I need in update. We will be adding additional stuff into update in a second though. So let's just like, I mean, that seems kind of stupid to do it this way, but like the point is we want to have an orc.draw function as well. And this is very common in like game programming to have an update and a draw. You have these loops where you put all of the updating, all the things that like adjust the positions and stuff like that go into update. The explicit draw functions go into draw. So we can just cut this out here and paste it here. Except instead of org, it should now be self. Does that make sense? Because the orc is drawing himself. He's referring to his own table. Okay. So now we say orc draw orc update. Orc Lua 29 function arguments expected near end. All right, probably typos something. Oh yeah, I forgot the parentheses. You got to have this. Yeah, it all works. Okay. So I hope this makes sense. And it probably seems pointless that why did I move this stuff into here or whatever. But for example, the next thing I want to do is make his axe. And by the way, like let me open something and show you. I have a sprite sheet that I was considering using, but I just decided not to because a number of reasons. But like I was going to use this troll, which is like pretty nice and everything, but I guess the problem is there weren't enough types of monsters, and like a lot of them were like rats. because I had this idea. I have this idea for this game. I don't want to get it too into it yet, but there just weren't enough interesting characters, and this artist never made anything else. So I would be completely limited to all of this stuff. But the point is that when you have these drawings, like you can see, okay, like here's an attack animation. We're just going to be like, okay, the function will basically be like when you press the button, well, the most basic attack animation function, as far as the animation goes, would be like when you press the button, um, play this frame, then play this frame, then play this frame. Like love.graphics.draw this frame. You load in the sheet, you define coordinates from the sheet. Like it doesn't matter how it's done, but basically it draws this, it draws this, it draws this, it draws this. And the way I'm going to do this with the ASCII stuff is actually really stupid. I mean, I arguably it's easier than, I don't know, to be quite honest with you, I think I spent more time. I think I was able to animate this faster than I was able to use the code for moving the axe around and making it look good. Like it was not easy to figure out all the numbers for that. So the way I'm doing this is kind of stupid, and I'm going to paste in a lot of it so you don't have to watch me do it. But the idea is that we're going to separate the axe. So we're going to create a new thing in here called axe, which is a table. And axe is going to have its own X location, which is going to be, I have to look at my records, my notes here, because like I said, this was kind of a mess. These because I basically what I had to do is I had to keep testing it. So it was like, okay, the X location is supposed to be orc.xloc plus 23, and yloc is supposed to be orc.yloc plus 5. And that's just, I tested a lot of stuff out to get this stuff. So sprite is equal to p because that's how we draw the axe. This is another one I meticulously had to test, was the rotation. Scale, we're going to use scale a little bit, and frame is going to be like in the sprite sheet that I showed you. We're going to have an internal track of the frame because we're going to code in frames instead of using the images on the sprite sheet. So the point of doing this is that now you can kind of see why the draw function makes more sense to do like this. Because now I'm going to say love.graphics.print, and instead of self, I'm going to say axe.sprite, axe.xlocation, axe.yloc. And I could actually put the axe table in the orc table, and then it would be like orc.axe.xloc. I think that's a little bit clunky. To be honest, there is no real good way to do this axe rotation. Like it's a mess because of like you should just use a drawn sprite. Don't try to animate ASCII graphics. Okay, so let's see if this works. Okay, it took me like 3 or 4 minutes to figure this out for some reason, but I didn't capitalize axe. So I actually don't even think we need to say axe equals require orc, because orc is already being required. I don't think that is necessary. Let's just try this out. Okay, I didn't save it because it's still referencing a lowercase axe, which shouldn't be the case. Let me just save 100 times. Make sure it works. Okay, yeah. So the axe is working, but what's going to happen when I move? He forgot his axe. So the reason that's happening is because we have set this table of axe, and we've defined the X location based on the orc's location, right? But we have an update function, we have our draw function. What's happening, right? We have keyboard controls for the orc. And the keyboard controls is orc moving himself based on self.xloc. But there's actually no, this is like a load function. This is happening once. We actually need this to happen every frame. So one thing we could do is we could attach it to the keyboard controls, which I don't want to do. I don't like that. So instead, what I'm going to do is attach it here. And I'm just going to say, actually, I'm going to remove that from here and put it here and just say ax.xloc equals that, ax.yloc equals self. Because the orc this is in reference to the orc. And by the way, like, this wouldn't work. This would be a bad way of doing it because, like, I have this global variable for ax. So if I did make a second orc, there would only be one ax. This isn't, this ax thing is like, I'm doing it this way just for the animation, and we're going to be using sprites in the future. So, okay, let's see if this works. Unexpected symbol near equals sign on 38. Oh, why did I was like in table mode. You need to put commas here, but you do not put commas here. Okay, and so now the ax updates with the orc, which is what we want. Okay, one other thing I wanted to do was, now that we've kind of cleaned this up, let's put a, I had the colors written down here, 1 second. I mean, I kind of remember them anyway, but so in the draw function, I want to make the orc green. So we're going to say love.graphics.set color. And you can see here, it tells you like the first argument is the amount of red and then green and then blue. So pure green would just be 0, 2550. 0 is the minimum amount, 255 is the maximum amount. And so what happens is you set it, and then everything after that set is going to be green. So then again, we don't want the ax to be green. So I'm going to make the ax like, I don't know, like 150 or something. I think that's like gray, like a mid-range. All colors should be gray, right? I need to spell color correctly or it'll give me an error. Yeah, cool. All right. That doesn't quite look gray, but whatever. So we got a green orc now. Okay. Another little visual thing I wanted to do as a refresher on if statements and variables, and also a refresher on this stuff here. I want to add an orientation thing in here. So we'll put a comma after that item, type in orientation, and we'll default it to left. It doesn't matter what we default it to, really. We'll default it to left. And then in keyboard controls, we will simply add a line that says, depending on the direction, self.orientation equals left, right. I feel like I can type this faster than I can paste it. Maybe that's not true. Okay. So now whenever we press one of these buttons, his orientation will be updated, which doesn't do anything, right? That's just a meaningless string that we've created. It doesn't change anything. But what we can do to be cute here is in orc.update, we can make some if statements. If self.orientation equals down, then self.sprite equals this is the one we've been seeing. But we need that in there because otherwise it won't reset. Like it won't, we need all of them, right? You don't know what I'm talking about yet. 1 second. Up, then self.sprite. So if he's looking up, what should he look like? Just like that, right? Just to give it a little bit more personality. Left, then self.sprite equals. I was honestly pretty happy. Like this is one of the things when I was trying to like test this out. I was really happy with how this came out. Like for a very minimal amount of work, this is probably like the least amount of coding that got the nicest result, I would say. Okay. We need an end. We need an end. Okay. So what's happening here is when we press left, specifically we have keyboard controls, right? Keyboard controls runs, and whichever direction we've pressed sets the orientation on his table. And we don't even need, like, we actually, no, we do need this here because otherwise, well, no, we don't need this here actually. The reason we don't need it is because his sprite will default like this, and then whenever we press a button, it will update. And as you saw with Axe, we don't actually have an X location or Y location because it immediately is updated in reference to the orc. So as long as the orc has a location, the Axe will immediately get one on the update function. So keyboard controls runs, and if we press a button, the orientation is assigned. And then right after the Axe is set, the orientation is checked and it assigns a sprite based on the orientation. And then in the draw function, it prints self.sprite, which is set here. So what we should get is a nice little error. Then expected near equal sign. What? Oh, I'm an idiot. Okay. These are if statements, so you need equals, equals, not equals, right? These are checks. These are declarations. You've got to remember the difference between those. Yeah, you see him changing? I need to slow him down, man. He is too fast. 1 second. So, like he's too hard to see what's happening when he's moving so fast. There we go. He's still too fast. Like let's make him like 0.9 or something. And you see how this table is working, right? We're kind of just going in and editing his stats. Like it's a very, what happened, man? What happened? Worst thing ever is when you press a button that you don't know what you pressed and it messes stuff. Okay, I got it. Okay, yeah. So he looks very cute now, right? Like, actually, yeah. I need to make his butt a space wider because or do I, man? I don't know. It didn't look quite right. No, that's wrong. Okay. I guess just the way that when that's empty, it's not quite the same. Oops. It's not quite the same width, so it doesn't look quite right. Like it goes in a little bit. It's fine. Okay. So we've got all that set, looking good. Now I'm going to do the big pasting. All right. This is going to be, this is the insane little testing I did. Let me show you a little bit how I tested this, by the way. I think that's useful. So a way you can test things is you can put in the draw function like, well, let's just do it this way. Love.graphics.print axe.rotation. So I want to know what the axis rotation is what I'm trying to check here. So now it's telling me it's 14.9, which is what we set. And now I made a function I just threw it into keyboard controls, I think. I said, if love.keyboard is down space, then ax.rotation equals ax.rotation plus 0.001. So the default unit for rotation for by the way, I need to add in something that I didn't have in here. In the draw function, I need to add a bunch of stuff in for the ax actually. So let me show you real quick. Love.graphics.print. These are the arguments you can get. So the third one is orientation in radians. And that's the unit I was talking about, radians, which is like based on pi. And then scale factor x and y, origin offset x and y. All of these are arguments, and I'm going to be using all of them, which is, so ax.rotation, we've already created that. Ax.scale. And then this is just the offsets. So origin offsets, like, you have to set these correctly or the rotation will look all janky. But yeah, let me put in this. Oh, sorry. Yeah, ax rotation. So radians are very like, if you do like +1, it's too much. You need it. It needs to be a very fine adjustment to check what it is. So I 74. I forgot an if an end statement somewhere. Here. Okay. Bad argument. What was the bad argument? Oh, this empty thing that I left there. Okay. So this is the rotation I want, by the way. So this is like my, he's going to have a hammer, by the way, right? But I want him holding the hammer at an angle. Like you wouldn't hold it straight out. That's very weird. So now when I press space, it rotates a little bit. You can see it rotating, and you can see here specifically that it's rotating. So to check, this is how I figured out the animation, right? Is I wrote these numbers down and I did it for like probably way too many frames, way more than I really needed to do. But okay. So what I'm going to do though is create a function for animation of the axe. Also, I'm going to delete that rotation thing because I don't want that in there. Now, I'm really just kind of hard coding this in a way that, like I already said, with the sprite sheets, you would simply say, draw this frame. And we're going to be using a library. A library is like an external set of functions that you can import and make things easier for specifically things like sprite sheets where we don't want to hard code all of the sprite sheet ourselves. We can just use some, it's, I'm willing to take shortcuts like that sometimes when we know how it works and somebody's already figured out a nice way to do it. We're just going to use, it's called animate, and it just gives you some functions for animation that make things really like cleaner and easier to use. But for this one, we're not going to be clean and easy. We're going to do, let's just put it down here, I guess. It's going to be function animate frame number. So we've got this thing called frame number. And what we want is to make a local variable. So we say local frame number equals frame number. Now, I'm going to go ahead and paste all the frames in. And this is the really tedious part I told you about that I'm not going to make you watch me type out. But I will explain a few of the frames and show you what I'm talking about instead of just leaving you for dead here. Okay. So basically what's happening is we're going to be animating it. And by the way, frame number, we have, this is frame. What did I use frame for? I used it somewhere, but not there. Okay, anyway. Oh, I kind of remember now. So basically, we go in and we say, we're gonna be using this animate function in our keyboard controls for when we press the button to attack with. So this function is only for the animation, and we're gonna do it so that we increase the frame number we're gonna make another variable. We're gonna pass that variable into this function. I believe I'm going to be using this thing as a variable for this. So based on the axis frame, it will pass its frame into this function. And then depending on what that number is, we will get different rotation of the axe at first. And then as we rotate more, and this is a pulling back animation. So the idea is you hold down Q and he pulls the axe back and charges it. And part of the idea is that like it has a lot of startup frames, so you can get the startup frames out of the way by holding the button down, and then when you release it, it's active pretty quickly. So you could like get it ready before you're next to an enemy, and then you can swing when you get in range. And then as we get further in to the attack, we eventually change the sprite to like this swooshing. This is like rotated, by the way. So it's like a motion blur effect. And then I'm kind of like moving the axe around a little bit. I'm making the thing bigger. Now I have a real swooshing effect. Now the swooshing is dying down. And now it's going back to normal. So that's really the whole story of these. This is just like a really janky way of animating ASCII. But we need to actually plug this in. This isn't, right now, this is just a hanging function that isn't doing anything. So we want to go in to, where are we? Orc. We want to go into the keyboard controls. And this is going to be, it took me a while to figure out the best way to do this. And to be honest, I probably didn't find the best way to do it, but I found a way to do it that works. And that's a lot of times going to be good enough. So I want this to happen when we press and hold Q. So Q is going to be the attack button we use, because we're controlling with the arrow keys. So we're going to use like Q, W, E, R, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, again, like before we go into the code, let's think about what do we actually want to happen. So we want it so that when we hold Q down, the function animate is run. And then we also want that function to increase the number being passed into it every frame so that the animation happens. But we also are going to need to stop it when it hits a certain frame, right? We don't just want that number to go up forever. And then we're also going to need it so that when you release the Q key, he swings. That's the gist of it. We're going to run into some problems along the way, but that's what we're going to go for. So we're going to say if axe.frame is less than 17. Why 17? Because 17 is the final frame of pullback, where he's pulling the axe back. 18 is when he starts to swing. So 17 startup frames. So if it's less, actually 16, it's 16, so less than 17. Then we say animate what did I call it? Did I say orc.animate or just animate? I just said animate. And we are just going to call it animate, I think, because it's mostly the axe animating, and yeah, we're just going to call it animate. You could do it axe.animate. Honestly, like I told you, this was kind of a this wasn't the best approach to do this. Okay, so we're going to say animate axe.frame, and then axe.frame equals axe.frame plus 1. So axe.frame starts out as 0. When we hold Q down, if it's less than 17, which it is, it's going to do an animate. And it's not going to do anything really the first frame. We're going to increase axe frame by 1, and then the next time it loops around, it's going to play the next frame. Okay. Now, the next thing we want to do is say, what if it's higher than 17? Then what do you do? Well, actually, that's not what we do, right? So can we just test this as it is? Let me see. Let's just test this and see what it looks like. Because we've added a lot of stuff without testing it. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, cool. He's charged. But when I let go, nothing happens. When I press it, nothing happens. All we've done is loaded that animation so that when we can do it one time, he can load a swing one time and then he's done. So we need to fix that. Now, this is like, there's a lot of things to do here. The first is going to be, we need to get something to happen if we're not pressing Q. So the problem though is if we say, how do you do that? You say if not love.keyboard is down. So this is going to happen whenever you're not pressing Q. This is going to happen, which is obviously not like that's not good, right? We only want it to do it when we have already pressed Q and we let it go. We don't want it to always be happening. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this before we do any of this other stuff. We're going to say orc dot is charging equals true. Okay. So when we do that, you press Q, and this is charging thing is basically being added to his table it's called a Boolean. So it can either be true or false. Okay. And so we say, as soon as you press down Q, orc is now charging. Okay. So now for this if not Q thing, we can say if orc dot is charging equals true, then. And now anything, whoops. Now anything we put, this is only going to it's going to check every frame if we're not pressing Q. But if orc dot is charging is not equal to true, it just won't do anything. It will just ignore it. Okay. So let's run that and just make sure that nothing happens. Yeah, nothing happens. Okay. So that didn't break anything. The thing is, so now what we need to have is, and just really like, maybe even pause the video and think about like, how would you make it so that he continue? Remember, we have the frames already. So what do we need now? We need him to when we release Q, we want to go up through these frames. We want to continue through the frames. So what we can do is say, where did I go? Where's my keyboard controls? Okay. Then, so if charging is true, think of it like if you let go of Q, this is only going to happen when you let go of Q, right? So as soon as we let go of Q, we can increase the frames, right? We're going to say, but I want to make a check. If ax.frame is less than 17, then do this. Because I also want to make it so that if you just tap Q, I want him to complete the swing. I don't want it to be that if you tap Q, he starts charging and stops. I want him to complete the entire animation if you just tap Q. But I also want you to have the option of charging it. So this is checking, because maybe you hold Q down and you let go before you reach 17. This just completes it. Okay. Now we say else if. I don't think we've introduced else if yet, but else if is like, if this, do this, otherwise, and then you have to give another condition. If you say else, it just, if this is false, it will do whatever you say in else. If you do else if, it's going to check the other thing. Else if ax.frame is greater than or equal to 17, and ax.frame is less than 27. So 27 is, yeah. So if it's an existing frame, I don't know why I have this here. Apparently, it's whatever, it works. Like those things are really janky, but I think as long as it works. Okay, is less than 27, then we continue to edit. And I'm noticing right now, by the way, like we could theoretically put this in a function even, like anytime you're repeating stuff like then ax.frame, like you're not supposed to repeat yourself, but we're just kind of really powering through this to see how to do it, to learn some stuff. Okay, so otherwise we continue on through the animation. But what do we do if the frame, ax.frame, is exactly equal to 27? So if we think through, this completes the animation. When the animation is done, what do we want to have happen? We basically want to reset everything. So we're going to say animate 1, go back to the first frame. Actually, it might even should be 0, but I'll just say 1. Animate 1, ax.sprite, go back to the original sprite of the P. Orc.isCharging is now false. He's done with the attack. No. We don't want him to be charging anymore because, dude, I don't know why it's doing this. Like, okay, I'm going to click out and go to another line and tab back over so it doesn't do that. Ax.frame, we also need to reset that back to 0. And ax.scale has been messed up, so we set that back to 0. Okay. And now we need a bunch of ends so that we have everything ended properly. That doesn't look right. No. I feel like I am missing something here. Let's run the code and see what error we get. I think we'll get an error. We didn't get an error, but he's not committing to the swing, so we haven't gotten that in there yet. Let me see. What did we forget? Okay, it took me a good 10 minutes to find this error. And the error was that this needs to be capitalized. So basically what was happening was without this capitalized, it was always skipping this and just saying if the frame is greater than or equal to 17, which was never happening because it wasn't getting there. So I had this debug stuff. Let me just show you real quick, like how I isolated this or whatever. So I have this debug stuff I added in. 0 is frame number. True is charging. So I knew that the frame number was 17. I knew the orc is charging equals true. So I also added in this test1 equals swing, which is a global variable. If test1, then print test1. The idea being basically that when the condition is met here, I should see swing on the screen. And I didn't. So I knew there was like something wrong. Like at least this wasn't even getting to happen. And I just kept checking like all the numbers and I just couldn't figure it out, but it was this. So when we change that, it's going to work. I hold down Q, I release, and he swings, and it says swing. Yeah, you can see like it does that quick animation. There's another thing I want to do in initialize right now. I was talking to the Highlander was commenting on my videos, asking about the frame rate, which is seeming to be really high. And we're going to fix that eventually by using delta time, but like a quick little, I think I'm running at like 120 frames per second right now. So I can go into the initialize and just say love.window.set vsync to. I mean, this is like a dirty fix, I think, but I don't want it to run that fast right now. And this is like a solution I found. So you can see it's a bit slower now. You can kind of parse the animation a little bit better, but yeah, I mean, it's whatever. Like this isn't the greatest animation in the world. And I also didn't animate it going the other way. So, you know, he'll swing backward if he's walking up. But you can see there's a problem though, right? What's this problem? So this is like a common theme when you're coding stuff is like when you run into problems like this, you have to just kind of think through what's happening. And then you really can't learn this from tutorials. You have to practice, and you have a goal of a thing you want to have happen, and then you have to logic it out. So what's happening here is if I press Q again during the attack animation, he stops attacking. And why is that happening? Because the conditions we've set were like, if not love.keyboard is down. So basically, if as soon as you press Q, it stops doing this, which allows you to just like freeze the animation, which is obviously not something we want to happen. So the solution I came up with that I thought was pretty decent is I'm going to add an or condition. Ax.frame is greater than 17. So an or condition basically like it's going to check this. And if this isn't true, it's just going to do it. But if this is true, if Q is down, it's going to check this and say, oh, well, ax.frame is greater than 17, so I need to do this now. And basically that means that if the frame count gets over 17 by letting go of Q, regardless of whether I press Q again or not, it's going to finish this whole thing before it resets, or before it won't freeze in the first place, but it will like follow through with this whole thing. So let's make sure that works. Yeah, you can hear me slamming the button. I can't freeze it anymore. And if I just tap Q once, it does the full animation and we have the charging behavior as we want it. There were a few other things I wanted to add. There was one other little thing I liked to add in. I guess I'll put it in update or something, but we have his speed is currently 0.9. So let's just say in update, we can say if orc dot is charging equals true and orc dot speed equals 0.4. I think we can just else if here, like else if orc dot is charging equals false. What was it? 9. Wait. So that just adds a nice kind of, I mean, it depends how you want the game to be, right? But this is not working. Okay. Why? If orc dot is charging, it's sure then. Okay, that should work. Did I not save it? Yeah, there we go. Okay. So now when he charges, he doesn't move as fast, which is, I don't know. I like that touch. Like, and if if I'm running and I try to hit Q, you can see it stagger, like, is the idea being like, he's not able to run full speed while swinging. And it just adds some dimension to it, I guess. You can really quickly add in little things like that. Once you get the basics set up, you can change the functionality in pretty interesting ways. Okay. So now we're going to do the dummy. We're going to make a new document for that, and we're almost done. Like this has been a very long video, but we're getting close to done. Okay. So the dummy, we're going to create a table for that. And it's just going to be a dummy. I mean, it's not going to do a lot. I'm just going to hard code it at this location. We're going to give it a sprite that just looks kind of goofy. And, we're so far in this video, I'm just going to I'm just going to put this in now and we'll get to it later. And I'm just, we've explained this update draw thing a few times. We're going to, well, we're going to leave that empty for now, because I do want to explain the involved frames thing. Okay. We're going to get a function for the dummy to take damage. And we're going to add a function for the dummy display damage that it takes. Okay. So that's what I want the dummy to be able to do. Did I not make a draw function for the dummy? How did I do that? Right. All right, well, let's make that function then. I'm looking at my other code and I'm just like not seeing a draw function. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I put it somewhere else. I don't know. Dummy draw. Let me just do love. I probably put it like an orc draw for some reason. I don't know why I would have done that, but in my other code, I guess. We can kill these debugs. See if that works. Oh, we haven't. Yeah, we gotta put that into initialize. Actually, I'm guessing probably put it into initialize and just hard code it in or something. Syntax error on dummy line 20. End of function expected. We didn't. Did I? What's the code? There's like a. Try something. Oh, I need, dude. Okay. Yeah, I need to actually type function. Okay, there's the dummy. I actually don't want him at that spot though. Let's put him at like 600. Okay, cool. There he is. All right. So now, I mean, I can thwack the dummy, but nothing happens because I haven't coded anything in there, but he's there. So what we're going to do now is we have his damage thing. The first thing I actually want to do though is get the collision detection in there. And we're going to put that in the orc, I think, because it's like related to the axe and stuff. I called it like check hit or something. I think I put it actually like the way I did this when I coded it it's all with the axe. So I like honestly, I think I'm just going to put it in the dummy. I'm going to make this a dummy function because the dummy can check his own function dummy. Check it. So what we want is the axis active frames being the frames during which I want to count as a hit are going to be 22, 23, and 24. So the first condition is, are we during the active frames of the axe? If yes, then we can check collisions. Otherwise, we don't need to check collisions. And I'm doing point checks here. So I'm checking if 2 points are, I'm checking if rather than setting a hitbox for the dummy, I'm basically just checking is the central point of the dummy inside of a big box that I'm defining for the axe's hitbox. It's just a very, basic hit detection here. So, and again, I had to kind of test this like by looking at it and seeing if it looked right. And these are the numbers I came up with. And I'll explain them in a second. And we shouldn't be saying dummy, we should be saying self. Let's put end here so it doesn't, I have what this is like. Okay. And x.xloc is less than or equal to self at hold on, where am I? If x.x location is less than or equal to self.x location plus 70, and this is greater than or equal to self.x location, and stop y location is greater than self.y location plus 30, and okay. So the idea here is we check, is the axis active frames happening? If yes, then we're looking at the axis X location on this horizontal axis. Is it less than or equal to the dummy X location plus 70 pixels to the right? And then we're also checking, is it less than or equal to, so is it, we're creating a rectangle. Okay, it's a 70 pixel rectangle on this axis, and then on the Y axis I'm only making it 30 because the attack is wider than it is tall. And this is a very inaccurate hitbox. Like, I wouldn't leave it so bad in the game, but I just wanted to get this example done. And the reason it's offset so much on one side, it's like, I think that the dummy's X location is being drawn at like the far side, and you have to offset it. Like, this is the number I got that looked right. I swung a bunch and tested, and this is what ended up looking clean. So now self.damage 50, we actually need to define that because right now that's not doing anything. And so the basic thing we're going to do is say self.hp equals self.hp minus number, right? And it's pretty straightforward. So let's see if that works. We just have love brackets print dummy.hp. We should see the HP going down when we hit it. We don't. Okay. What went wrong? Oh, we didn't actually run this function. That's what we did. So did I make a dummy.update yet? I did. So in love.update, we need dummy. Okay. And hopefully it will work now. No, it doesn't work. Okay, let's see. Self.hp equals self.hp minus number. I'm going to show you how I do this debug thing sometimes. It's like, we need to isolate the problem. Okay, we see swing happening, that means I forgot to take that test one out of swing. So let's get rid of that. So we know that's working already. We see test happening, but the numbers aren't. Well, actually, it looks like the numbers are changing now. So maybe the problem was simply that I didn't save the file or something. Let's see. Maybe the numbers weren't changing. Oh, they are. Okay. Yeah, they're changing, but something is happening. It's going by way more than 50 per hit. So this is where the invulnerability frames come in. Because if you look at the number, if I do one swing, it does 150 damage because there's 3 active frames, right? So I'm going to make the invulnerability frames so that when the dummy gets hit, there's a window of time, a set number of frames where it can't take damage again to avoid this happening. Now, I have to be careful, like in the future, if I make the attack speed, like if you can buff your attack speed, I need to make sure that the invulnerability frames aren't like so long that I can't do damage anymore. like I hit 4 times and nothing happens, that wouldn't feel good. But just as long as you're aware of that, that's not too much of an issue. So we're going to go in the damage and say if self dot invuln frames are equal to 0, then we do that. But we also, I'm going to use this same, no, let's put this in update. So we'll say self, oh, no, it's here. We'll do it here. So, and then when he gets hit, we say self dot invuln frames equals 20. We could make it like it doesn't need to be that high. And then in update, we're going to say if self dot invuln frames are greater than 0, dude, this is such a hard word to spell consistently. I should call it iframes. If I were to do it again, I would call it iframes because it's so easy to typo that word. Okay, so basically what this is saying is invuln frames is always ticking down until it hits 0. It's never going to go negative though. And then when you get hit, when the dummy gets hit, its invuln frames go up to 10. So this should fix the problem where we don't 37. I missed something here. Oh, it's end statement. This should be indented. Okay. So that didn't work. 38. Still something. Function. And this. If, oh, we didn't put an end here either. Oh my God. So now, yeah, now we can't go below. Oh wait, we can still go below 0, but it doesn't ever. It does 50 damage correctly, right? Okay. So we're pretty much done, but we do want to get this display damage thing going so we get visual indication of stuff happening. Actually I have the wrong file open here on my other screen. A fancier dummy with hearts and stuff or something. Let me find it. Is this the one? No. Where did I even put that? I don't remember. Health bar. Oh, that's where it is. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we're gonna give the update function these like little health bars. So I'm just gonna do like this. If self.hp is 100, then self.health bar is 2 hearts. Yep, so and then if he's dead, end. Okay. Let's see if that worked. No, because I didn't actually print the health bar anywhere. So do we have dummy draw? Where is dummy.draw? Here. Okay. So in dummy.draw, we want the dummy can be the same color. We want the hearts to be red. So red is the first one. and we want to print the health bar, which is the hearts. We need to offset those some amount, mostly on the y-axis, because we want it over the dummy's head rather, or under, or I think I decided under looked better. I can't quite remember. I tried both. It was like the one I thought would look better ended up looking worse for some reason. And now I don't remember which one looked better, but let's try it like this. Let's spell graphics right. Okay, so that should display now. Yeah, they look better under. I think it looked better under because we're swinging from the top. So if you have it over, it yeah. So now when I hit, we can see a heart go away. And now it says I'm dead. And the final little thing I wanted to add, and then we are done. And I'm basically dead from this. This video has been very, very long. When we say, where did I put this? In damage for some reason. I mean, you could put this anywhere, but I just put it in damage. If self.hp is less than or equal to 0, then, and I put this like check here, then self.hp equals 0, just so that it doesn't go under 0. I don't like letting things like that get under 0, even if I'm not intending to have like anything go on in this function ever again. It's just bad. It feels like bad practice to me to let stuff go negative like 300 when you hit it when it's already dead or whatever. Okay, so did that work? Do we get him dying when we hit him? Yeah, he's got X's for eyes, so it worked. And you can kind of get the idea here, like what types of things you need to do to start making a game work. Like you have, we can move our character around. We have some cool stuff like the different behaviors of this attack. And in the final game, I want to have different levels of like, I'm going to have it like, this is like a level 1. If you hold it long enough, it becomes level 2. And there's going to be a window right in the middle where you get like a much better attack if you time it perfectly. And you would probably want like collision detection here, so you can't just walk through the dummy. But this whole like, I'm hitting this guy and taking his HP away. Okay, he's dead. I have attack animate. Like this is really a core. If you can do this, you probably can do a lot more than some people who only code in Unity and don't really know any coding. Like this is a lot. Like this is giving you a lot of tools. Like you could make a pretty functional game at this point, just knowing the stuff that you've learned in these 3 videos. Although I think I don't even know how long this video is. It's probably like 2 hours. But in the next video, I will show you how to import the sprites using the animate library. That will probably be a shorter video. I'm just going to import like some sprites, attach them to the keyboard controls, and call it a day. And then we'll start actually trying to make, I think I'll zoom out at that point, and video 5 we'll start making a game, like making the real game. So thanks for watching.